The best netball podcast ever. I have to let you go because I can't handle how late you are with your intro.
I've said this 1,000 times. It's literally the computer's delay. Like, I am talking like a normal person, staying in time.
I'm Chris, and I think I'd smash a fitness test right now.
And I'm Carla. Do you want to try that live, Chris? I have a stopwatch.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
For any listeners listening on audio, I am holding up a stopwatch.
Let's move on.
Thought so.
We're going to go straight into a listener message today.
Ooh.
Because we are able to do what we want on this podcast. We don't need to follow no script. Listeners' messages.
This one comes from Stuart in Edinburgh, which is quite good because, interestingly, we have the Scottish head coach coming on later. So I felt like it would be good to pick a message from a listener in Edinburgh, which is in fact in Scotland.
Love a theme.
Hi, Chris and Carla. My daughter's recently started playing netball after years of telling her football was the best sport in the world. I've now spent every weekend standing on the sideline watching netball, and I think I'm becoming a convert. Is this how it all starts? Oh.
Love that. Well, firstly, hello, Stuart. Thank you so much for taking the time to message us. We haven't had that many men message us. We've had a few. It's lovely to hear from you. And congratulations on becoming a netball dad.
It's very cute, isn't it? We obviously had an episode a little while ago now of netball versus hockey, where we had James Bateman, the England hockey coach, and the lovely Lauren Nichols defending, challenging netball. And we had one versus the other with a load of games. I feel like this is a call to action to do the same for football. Maybe we could get Stuart on. What's funny?
Well, I'm just thinking what football players I know.
Of who we could get on.
You know all the netball players. Maybe I've got a few football players in my phone. Who knows?
Well, it's worth a shot, right? Let's message them. I'm thinking Alex Ferguson. And I'm thinking Alex Ferguson against Vic Burgess, because I think that will play out brilliant. My money's on Vic.
100% she'd eat him for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that. Let's get that podcast episode produced.
But do you know what, Stuart? It's great to be a netball dad. Embrace it, support your daughter, and before you know it, you are going to know all the positions and be shouting from those sidelines.
Yeah, you'll suddenly hear them at home shouting, "Hell ball! Your centre pass." And I have to say, like, my own daughter absolutely loves it when her dad comes. Like, I could watch every hour of every minute. I swear to God, my life is sat on the side of a netball court or in the car waiting for her to finish training. The one game her dad goes to watch is like the best thing ever. And you're like, hang on, I've put the hours in here.
It's because dads are cool.
I know, it's annoying. But yeah, keep it up, Stuart. And we think, forget football now. You're one of us.
Yep.
Let's get on with the show, Chris, because we have a packed show today. I want to talk all things Super League because we had the last round of the season. We have the lowdown with Lauren coming up. And then we have a very special guest a bit later on today who is the head coach of the Scottish Thistles. So that's really exciting. Kath Tetley.
What an awesome episode. No wonder we're very nearly an award-winning podcast.
We're award nominees right now. Let's ride that out a little bit. Yeah, that'll sound good enough.
Here we go then.
Brace for impact. The lowdown
with Lauren.
So welcome back, Lauren Nichols, for the lowdown with Lauren. Play jingle. Can I just say, Lauren, that the jingle has had such fantastic feedback. So well done. It's probably been one of our highest commented on jingles ever, which, I mean, let's be fair, Chris set a pretty low bar, but well done regardless. And we're very glad to have you back as always.
No, thanks. So thank you for having me back. And you know what? When I first heard it, I was really excited. I was like, right, okay, skip back 10 seconds. Let me listen to it again. That was really good.
Cute. So we have a few things to delve into today. I've been quite excited because we've been chatting in our little podcast team. We had a couple of management meetings this week. And I feel like even in our team, like, we are netball nerds. We live and breathe netball. And we've got a lot of unanswered questions. And I said, don't worry, team. We've got a pro coming on that we could ask this to. So I don't know how deep we're going to get into this, and I actually don't know how much you know, so let's just see what happens here. But I would like to talk a little bit about the structure of the NSL and just a little bit of info or any insight you might have as a player, as a coach, in terms of the franchises, the teams, on the transfer window, the import rules, and then I would love to delve into kind of what happens now, because the pool rounds are over. We're obviously waiting at time of recording for the prelim semis and then the big final. But we're just interested, like, what goes on in this period?
Yeah, so as we spoke about last time, we've obviously got prelims and the semi-finals to come, and then the big soft and gentle grand final. And then traditionally, the midnight after the final would be where the transfer window opens. So, you finish the final that evening, and pretty much by the time you wake up, you could have offers on your door. So that's kind
crazy.
It's a little bit crazy, and I think that's also why this year and the league have given players grace of at least a day before it opens. Obviously, with the final on the 20th, the transfer window actually opens on the 22nd, so you sort of get a couple of days to try and, again, for those that have made the final, try and process whatever's happened, good or bad, and again start to sort of plan what's next. But even before that, in these last couple of weeks, so once the regular rounds have done, head coaches from Super League teams can speak to their current contracted players and sort of kind of gauge where they're at, like what the season, how they've done in the season. A bit of a review process, really. Each team will do it differently. You might have a meeting with all of your MDT, your multidisciplinary teams, so your S&C, your physio, sports psych, nutrition, etc. You might all sit together and chat through each player, or that player might come into those meetings and you chat together. Again, it's just about performance of all of those things, so not just on court, but everything else off court as well. Then using your analysis as well, so you'll go through some clips and some video and with the stats on that, and then some will be like signed straight away and it's a decision that's made prior to that meeting. Others will be, okay, we're considering, but we're not going to complete our 10 before the signing window finishes if you're not going to keep the exact same 10. So each team is going to be quite different of deciding whether they're going to keep the exact same 10 or if they're going to want to branch further afield. It can be a bit of a nervy time for players, which is obviously quite scary because you prep for a semi and a final for those top four teams as well as sort of having half an eye on your future and what it looks like at the club. For everyone that's sort of been around it for the last however many years, you kind of get those last couple of weeks that it's business as usual. You are going to do your job right until the contract finishes, and then you'll start to sort of process and really consider what is next. So yeah, for players and coaches, these sort of last 2 weeks finish the regular rounds before the final is just within your own club. You can't speak to any other franchises and be like, hey, can you sign me? And the same thing if your franchise is finished and not playing in the semis, they still can't approach anybody else besides your currently contracted players. So it sort of gets that sort of protection that you have those 2 weeks as you're still in your own little bubble before it opens out to everyone.
It sounds terrifying. I think, firstly, they need to go and sort of listen to our trials episode, right? Because we could give them a few tips here. Do players have to trial, or is it literally conversational at this stage? Like, I guess they're always on show, but is there an actual trial element to it or not?
No trial. So again, back when we first, when I was first playing the Super League, it would be a trial. And again, that's probably, I made my debut in 2012 and there's definitely trials at that point. So it's exactly what we spoke about with juniors and normal clubs now, is that you'd go to trial and it'd be all on that one 2-hour session of being able to show off what you can do. It's more so that, again, it'd be obviously players that have been on show all season that are currently in the Super League, but then also you as head coach might be looking at other leagues as well, so overseas of where they're playing currently, but also maybe again half an eye on Premier League here and who's playing Prem 1, 2 or even 3 as well. Actually, you might see some people that have got real potential, but then a lot of it as well, you're spending a lot of time watching Next Gen and looking at the teams there and thinking, again, you obviously know your Next Gen players, but looking at the rest of the league and thinking, is there a standout position that we're really looking for with somebody that you're going to get another 10 years out of? It's having a looking at everyone. Everyone's kind of on the show. It's not like one specific trial date. And obviously, if you've been in that team already, they've got all the information they need to decide whether they would like to continue that contract for a further year. But also, players could already be on a 3-year contract. So at the minute, there's a 1, 2 or a 3-year contract that you can sign. They could already just know that they're rolling on into the year 2 or year 3 of their contract. So this time of year doesn't change. It's just, again, business as usual because they know they've got a place for next year.
That was actually one of my questions. So is that the case? Obviously, if you're in that contract, I'm assuming it's pretty airtight, you're safe, and that gives you a little bit of protection to perhaps be able to deliver sort of for however long that period. And leading on to that, how many are on 3-year contracts? How many only get 1 year? Who decides the length of that contract? Is that coach specific, club specific?
Yeah, I think coach and club specific. And again, I'll be honest, quite a lot of it's a bit like cloak and dagger. I don't know. Again, even our club, players don't really know necessarily of who is on how many years. I mean, some of it's like people will publicise and be like, oh, like, this is our squad and we're like building for these 3 years and this is what we've signed, and others won't. I really don't know of like the length of time, but say you've got between the end of the final until the last weekend in August to make all of your 10 signings, and then I suppose from there is when we start to try and build like the fan interest. And again, each team does it differently, don't they? Either we're going to go, right, bam, here's our 10 and here's your announcement, or okay, here's a little teaser, can you guess this person, or we're keeping this one on. So I do love that time of year when it starts to all come out. And again, like for me, even just as a Super League fan as well, thinking who is it that's gone, or like again, they might have a little silhouette and you're like, oh god, is it so-and-so, is it so-and-so, and you're trying to really guess. So yeah, the social media teams really come to their own at that point and make it exciting for us fans.
Absolutely. Do many of the players have agents, or do they all work directly? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so again, over the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years, it's become much more of a thing. There's quite a lot of players on agents, particularly if you're involved in an international team as well. I think that just sort of helps to cover all bases and again help you to ask the right questions, to be able to make sure what you need is covered within those contracts and those contracting and negotiation conversations. So it could be that again that they're chatting about the multidisciplinary, like I spoke about earlier, so like the S&C cover, or is it that like insurance or whatever it is that's like that you're having to like talk back and forth about, that your agent can help you negotiate those terms for your contract. Some will be about like accommodation, or again like a car or travel or that kind of thing that will come with your contract. So the agents will be doing that. But what's been again fantastic over the last few years of how much say and how much support the MPA, so the Players Association, have on this. So anyone that signs up to be a member, this is the bit of the season in particular where you're having plenty of conversations with them. Again, one on a like a performance lifestyle sort of decision. So again, with footballers, again, not that I've ever been in this scenario, but like if you're a footballer that's getting millions every week and you're playing in Newcastle, but then you get a contract in London and you're having to shift your whole life within 2 weeks, it's probably not that big of a deal because you can buy a new house and you've got a car and you've got shed loads of money, so it doesn't really matter. But I think for netballers, again, that lifestyle change, and again with people that are still either working or either students, or like, you know, some of them that are in school still that can't necessarily just up and leave, having the support of the MPA has been really, really important. And again, they are hugely involved in the contract itself, so the actual writing of the contract that Super League, like the standard one that goes from the Super League to the franchises, that has to be uniform for everyone. And then obviously you've got the add-ons and differences between clubs and what they offer in terms of like what I just spoke about, like training times and hours that you should be there and whatever else. Those bits, again, the MPA will really support people if you haven't got an agent, but also if you have an agent, and they can help you to get an agent if you want one. But if you don't want one and want to have those conversations but would like some support in doing that, maybe like, again, younger players that, you know, this is the first time having that conversation and realising this is, you know, this is your career now, you need to make sure you're getting a good deal and really selling yourself. As much as you're thinking, wow, okay, amazing, I'm going to get paid to play netball, no, you need to make sure you're being paid to play netball. You need to make sure that you've got everything covered as much as possible and push to get the support that you need.
It's just really interesting, isn't it? And you're absolutely right. Obviously, it is their career, but it's also their whole life, like where they live, how they travel, like are they away from their family? And like you said, this could be 16, 17, 18-year-olds, never mind like 30, 35-year-olds that are also married. There's a whole spectrum, and I think as fans we kind of forget all of that element of it. It looks like you see those players on court and the social media around them creates this persona, but these are just real people with normal lives. And I think it is clear to see such a good evolution of the league, and I really hope that continues, and I hope that we are in a good position compared to other countries that will have a similar league, be they be better than us or ahead of us or behind. But I would like to think that in time the NSL could lead the way, and it sounds like there's some good progress. It's also really interesting when you talk about the fact that this also could be next-gen players or Premier League players, which is obviously the competition that's the highest point of the domestic calendar. And I think that's interesting, isn't it? I guess those clubs and those coaches, they've got to watch so much netball across the whole spectrum to be able to stay so involved and current and make sure they're making really good choices. And it also reminds you that there's just 10 spaces in 8 clubs. That's 80 players. And when you think of the hundreds, thousands, in fact, millions playing netball, it's a tough ask, isn't it, when you get into that elite level?
Yeah, it really is. And as you say, like being able to watch different leagues, being able to watch different standards, and also just seeing people who, again, might not be quite there yet, but again, if they're eligible for next gen, and again, between a head coach and a next-gen head coach, be able to have those conversations of, okay, they're not quite ready for me yet, NSL, but I want them in your environment, in the next-gen, knowing that in a few years' time, they're going to be sort of prepping and be ready for it. So, yeah, again, looking at those leagues and the whole sort of coaching staff will have eyes and ears everywhere to be able to see who's standing out, sort of like behaviours on court, what they're doing, their stats, their performances, and again, just like how they would fit in your environment, which I think is really important, again, for your club. So each club will be very different in terms of like kind of their, not necessarily like personality they're looking for, because, you know, everyone wants you to be you and be really unique, but there are certain like cultural behaviours and things that you kind of want people to like really fit in with. So I think just having those coach conversations between you, that's really important. And I like Super League coaches will talk to each other about it as well. So quite a lot of them are really good friends. A lot of them,
small world.
Yeah, ex-teammates or, again, opposition, and they all know each other really well, and they all will speak. So it will happen that, okay, they might have one player that maybe has not played much for them, and then that, you know, they'll talk between them and be like, oh, I was considering if we could pick them up, and like they might have that bit of to and fro, and they understand that player does show an interest in wanting to move clubs, and they can sort of say, well, you know what, this would be a fantastic move for them, and they'll completely support it and almost help that coach to bed them in and say, well, you know what, I'm so glad you've got them, because there's not quite space enough for us to keep them at the minute, but they'll be amazing for you, and this is how you're going to get the best out of them. So, yeah, the coaches are amazing with that. And when we talked about the agony aunt episode before about the player moving and coaches not feeling like they own players, and this is the sort of moment that it's the same with Super League, that we don't finish the season and be like, well, you've signed this last 3 seasons and played for us. It's going to be horrendous if you move somewhere else. You're betrayal to move somewhere else. It is your job, and it is a professional performance, elite environment. You want to be playing the best netball you can and really enjoying it. If that's in a different franchise, that's a different franchise, and that's just how it is nowadays.
That's so interesting, and I think, yeah, our listeners will probably like really understand the kind of the cultural fit being so important. And you're right, it's no different than a job. Like, people leave their jobs, and yes, their employee might be disappointed, but like you said, you don't own an employee in the same way you don't own a player. So yeah, really good insight. Thank you. I think that's so useful. Hopefully it's helped answer a few questions. So tell me a little bit about what happens in the clubs in the off season, because we're obviously almost getting towards the end, the finals loom in. Then what happens? We've got quite a long period. I'm assuming everyone takes a break and a holiday. When does it gear back up, and what happens during that period for the clubs?
Yeah, pretty much most players you'll see. So I say the 20th is the Soft and Gentle grand final. 21st, you'll probably see lots of players on their Instagram on a flight somewhere. So yeah, I think the instant release and try and have a bit of downtime is really important. So that initial bit. Again, they might still be thinking, I don't want to be too far away, so I've got contracting conversations to be having. A lot of that is wrapped up within that sort of first week. A lot of the head coaches actually are pretty much wrapped up the day after the final, so they're not having to do it over summer. Like, they've already sort of got this master plan jigsaw and try and get it together pretty much in the next couple of days. So yeah, once that's wrapped up and they've kind of got their plan for next season, it's at least 3 or 4 weeks off, and again, ideally completely off netball, mentally off netball as well, so maybe not watching it. But if you're an international player leading to Commonwealth Games, that's completely different this season. But if we just go for like a general Super League player, they will have some time off, probably for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll be ticking over with different stuff in the gym. Again, maybe a few like rehab type exercises. So again, if they've picked up a couple of niggles or something that's a bit weaker this season, or something, if they've had an injury within the season, that's your real focus point over that summer period, to get that right and get it strong enough to prep for pre-season. Pre-seasons will start roughly, it will really depend. So October time, most players will be back in with their teams. Again, if you're a part of an international team, that's obviously an international window too. So they will be in camps for their international side and then come into a handful of Super League sessions just to sort of check in and stay around the group to sort of get to know the team that is for next season. But yeah, the ones that are in commies don't necessarily get a rest until after commies. They've got a tough kind of 2 years it kind of rolls into. Well, then World Cup as well. Tough 3 years.
Busy.
Hey, look, you're the top player in the country. We're gonna make use of you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, basically a holiday, a bit of prehab, rehab, fix up any injuries or any worries in that. Fill your non-netball cup, so spending lots of time with family, seeing all those friends that have forgotten you exist because you're always on a netball court.
Only get to see you on YouTube.
Yeah, genuinely, like, oh yeah, I remember seeing you this week just on TV, but at some point we will be having brunch and we'll catch up. And so yeah, those types of things, just trying to catch up. But yeah, and then after that, October time is pretty much when it all kicks off again and you're back into it like you never left.
Lauren, thank you for your time today, as always. Super helpful, and I just feel like we've managed to clear a few things up. We would love our listeners' comments, any feedback, any input that you want to give us on our socials, so please get in touch. And Lauren, we will see you at the semi-final and potentially, hopefully, the final. Obviously, you're part of the Forest setup. We wish you and your team the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we'll speak soon.
Today, we are joined by one of the most influential, experienced figures in World Netball. From starting her career in media and communications with Netball Australia to helping to build the New South Wales Swifts as one of the most successful and recognisable female sports teams in Australia, to playing a key role in the creation of Giants Netball and helping to deliver the 2015 Netball World Cup. Kath Tetley has spent decades shaping the sport from behind the scenes. And now as head coach of the Scottish Thistles, she's bringing that wealth of experience to the international stage, leading Scotland through a new era and helping drive the growth of netball both on and off the court. What makes Kath's journey so fascinating is she hasn't just worked in one area of the game, she's seen netball through almost every lens possible and been involved in media, marketing, franchise development, leadership and high performance environment that helps shape international coaching. Today we're here to not only explore the journey that brought us here, but the lessons she's learned along the way. Welcome to the best netball podcast ever, Kath. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you, Carla, and I think you're being far too kind with that lovely intro, so thank you.
So we'll get straight into it. I've got loads of questions and we've had so many requests for a conversation with you. So most people now know you as a coach and a leader, but your journey actually started in media. Did you ever imagine that your first role with Netball Australia would lead you to becoming an international head coach like you are right now?
Absolutely not. I mean, that couldn't be further from what I started out as a 22-year-old, just excited to be working in the sport that I loved. So I just found it such a privilege to be in the door and being able to sort of be part of the team that serviced and supported the Australian Diamonds and what they were doing. I felt lucky. So something like a role that I'm in now is, I'm very grateful.
But looking back, what was the biggest lesson you learned whilst you were working behind the scenes? And when did you realise that this could become your whole life's work?
I have had a bit of a think about who and how do you get to these weird and wonderful places, because when I'm over here in Scotland in the rain wondering who was it that helped me, who was it that helped me get here, I had some really fantastic female leaders at Netball Australia. So Pam Smith was the CEO at the time, and my manager at the time, Helen Smith, was really influential because they really taught me the lesson of work hard and also don't be outworked. So I've probably taken that as my sort of mantra along the way, is life can be short and you have to see every day as a real privilege and an opportunity. So don't be outworked by the person next to you. You know, I might not be the smartest person in the room or the fastest or the best shoulder pass in the room, but if you work really hard, you can show people that you'll still be there when everybody's crossing the line. And I guess I've probably taken that approach in my work over the years. And the other privilege, and this is why I really love talking to people in sport as well, is it's just such a privilege to work in a team sport environment, because you can't do anything alone. As someone who just really enjoys being around people, that life skill of being with others, but also having the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to outwork you, is actually a bit of fun as well.
I love that. So you've helped build organisations from the ground up. What do you think it actually takes to create a successful netball franchise?
It takes a spine of people who really believe, like the spine or a backbone or whatever terminology you like to use. You need a group of people who are just 100% committed to the end game. It is no mean feat to get franchises up and going. It's actually been so much fun to be here in the UK and watching the franchises doing their thing on the other side of the world. The similarities, the challenges, the hard work that it takes getting people to love your brand and turn up to games. It's really hard work. And so I think just having outstanding people on your shoulders makes the world of difference, because things do get tough. There are really rough moments where you're trying to really grind and do a lot with not a lot of money or resources. And there have been some years where I sort of thought, wow, like we are just doing this the hard way. But you can kind of do it when you're in the trenches with people that are funny or like just really hard workers. It gets you through.
So I guess that like sort of leads quite nicely on to where we're at right now, because at the moment, obviously you're on the other side of the world. Obviously we've seen Giants struggling and Swift's having a tough year. How has it felt for you personally when you're over here sort of looking back, and how much correlation is there between your interaction with you in Scotland and your past in Australia?
So it's a problem for me because I love sending memes. So when you've got people that you really care about, and you can see that they're in the trenches, like trying to dig themselves, whether it's out of a performance challenge or a marketing challenge or a fan engagement challenge. These are your friends. Like you've done the hard yards with them. So it is hard, but there's also really good people there where you go, well, okay, this might be their hard period, but they will come out. I mean, New South Wales powerfully has 120,000 people that love the game and play the game. So 120,000 members is pretty serious. Right. So I think it's about that ebb and flow of like how you get people to love your club, whether that's individuals, it's combinations, it's the coach, it's the show, it's the halftime. It takes a grind and it takes a plan. And I know that they're working really hard at the moment. So it's hard when you know that your friends are, really doing it tough, but they'll come out the other side. They'll be right. The Mighty Swifts will always be mighty. So, and the Giants have got really good people there and some really special players that are youngsters coming through the ranks. So they'll be all right. They'll figure it out.
So the next question is it's quite an interesting one, obviously, as we've watched the developments in the UK for the NSL 2.0. Why do some clubs and franchise thrive when other clubs struggle, even when they've got the talent of the players?
You are really feeding me my passion points. So, I mean, effectively, I've sort of done what I would call sort of 20 years of just loving fan engagement. So I'm really lucky. I've had a couple of roles where you can really dig into the what is it that fans want? Look, I'm not going to kid around. There are ideas that I have absolutely stolen from the Yankees or the Texas Rangers, and particularly American college basketball. They have just got a way of taking the crowd on the journey of the game. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what's happening on court. So I'm not being disrespectful to high quality players. I'm putting successful seasons together. But the opportunity to make sure that the fans have got the right experience from the minute they leave their car, right? Like from the minute they get up that morning, you have to take them on the journey of what the day is going to feel like. And if you can end it with a Sophie Fawns shot on the buzzer and everyone just dances out of the stadium, they're coming back the next week. But you don't get that every week, right? Like you don't necessarily get fairy tale endings to every game. So whether it's whoop towels with the right kind of music, or it's a halftime show that just gets everybody crying and emotional and thinking about the person sitting next to them. There's lots of different ways in which to put on an experience that people say, oh, I have to go back again next week. And all the better when the players just really buy into all of that. And I feel like that's where the magic is. When the team leans into the fans and they appreciate those moments, as well as the fact that you've got a team that's just working really hard and just doing great performances. A little bit of fan magic happens and they can't help but come and watch the games every week.
I love that. And it makes so much sense, doesn't it? It is so much more than just what happens on the court. If you were starting a franchise from scratch tomorrow, what are the first 3 things you'd focus on?
What would I focus on? I'd focus on who's at my core, who are my fans, and I don't just mean who lives locally to wherever the stadium is, right? Like, you don't get very far without figuring out who can love you. So, for example, once you do the work around what does your member look like, that's where the magic starts to happen. So one of the key terms I always use is, so there are fans and people that come to netball games, but have you figured out who your Uber fan is? Can you literally draw a picture of them and describe them on a post-it on the wall? Like, do you understand that she's going to bring her husband to some games and her mother to some games and her daughter to other games? Do you understand that she really likes to have a cheeky wine with a cheese platter at a netball game? And she doesn't really want to have an offering of water and hot dogs. I think once you can unlock some of the magic bits, you are flying. So to answer that question, I'd figure out who my Uber fan is, where they are. So whether that's like in a district or in a franchise or getting those kind of groups all together. And then, of course, being a coach, you appoint a fantastic human as your coach and you let them bring really good humans to the bench. And then when you've got that going, like, they will naturally bring people to them. They don't have to work hard because people really like people that work hard. Like, people like people who will throw themselves on the ground for the ball, like Maddie Proud, and do anything to wrap themselves around a post or get high and aerial and risk limbs for the ball. So, yeah, I think that would be 3 magic bits.
So let's talk a little bit about the Swifts story. The Swifts became one of the most successful and recognisable female sporting brands in Australia. And obviously part of that was the Netball World Cup. What's it like behind the scenes and how do you help manage those really stressful moments in a tournament?
You are absolutely right. It looks so fabulous and shiny from the outside. And there are just a bunch of people grinding in the bowels of the arena or in the car park or getting people from hotels to, like, there is so many things that is not glamorous about a World Cup. But what's so satisfying about it, that moment where you do stop and you look around 16,500 people and go, well, okay, we've done that. They've come and we've delivered them what was 54 of the best games of netball ever. And that happens at every World Cup. It's special. I would say that shout out to a few people that I worked alongside at Netball World Cup. They were some of the hardest working humans I've ever stood alongside. One person was so sick we didn't know whether we were going to get her through. That she just was grinding it out. And I think for that particular World Cup, we were so proud of the way in which we went about it. Marnie Fechner, our leader as CEO, was just outstanding. And she just really understood what fans wanted from the event. So it was great.
Let's talk Scotland. Let's come up the other side of the world in the rain. What excited you the most about taking on the Scottish Thistle role in the beginning?
I think in the beginning, I had said to so many players along the way, well, why aren't you going and trialling for that team? And they would say, no, I don't want to. And I was worried about failing. And so we'd get into this banter. And then they would ask, well, what's your goal? And they would say, do you want to be the head coach of the Diamonds? I said, absolutely not. But let me tell you about the Thistles and where my grandmother is from. And so I would tell them about the Thistles. And at Netball World Cup, we had a campaign that was called Who's Your Second Team? So Aussies could obviously still support the Diamonds, but who's your second team? And I was the mad Scotsman fan and they did not disappoint me at 2015. And I sort of said after that, look, if I could just have one day behind the scenes with the Thistles, I'd be absolutely thrilled at the opportunity. A job came up on Facebook. All of the players that I'd harassed said to me, well, it's your turn. I put in an application thinking that I would be ignored. Here I am. So they took a risk on an Aussie. My grandmother is from Aberdeen. So she's from up north, and I now have a real appreciation for the weather up there. My dad's side of the family is Scottish, and really proud to be here.
I love that story. It must be so nice to have that heritage as well as just the netball reason for coming over.
I think the really interesting thing with the heritage piece too is that you don't realise the way in which people are in different countries and then how they translate in your family if you're not from there. It has been so lovely the people here. It has felt really natural and normal because everyone is really sarcastic, super resilient, and just ready to like run through a wall for each other. And it's been such a natural way in which to work. It's been great.
What were the biggest opportunities for improvement when you first arrived? Obviously, you're taking on this job. You knew you wanted to be there, which I'm sure was half the battle. But where did it start? What were the biggest opportunities you could see within that team that you already inherited?
It was left in great shape by the coaches before me in that there were really good people there. And the reason I say that is that these were some of the most open to trying things athletes that I'd worked with in a long time. In Australia, we're like, oh, we've done that, you can't tell me something new about blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes that's a real challenge as a coach, wondering whether what you're offering is interesting or whether it's new or if it's going to be seen as just too wacky to absorb, right? And there were some really funny moments in the early training sessions where either A, I did not understand the Scottish that was coming at me. I was like, I don't know whether that's the accent or the words. And then we had to overcome phrases. I was like, sorry, someone's going to have to explain what a slip and slide is. We don't do that in Australia. I was like, a slip and slide is something at like a game park with a pool. So we had some really funny moments, but I do think it's the coachability and the openness to trying things. There have been some style changes that I've asked of the Thistles and they have been really welcoming of that. The way in which we play the ball around and with the different elements of ball speed, turning it on and off. Also, I feel like I joke about the fact that I'm allergic to resets. So I just like, no resets. Because they add extra passes to the game. So just little things where we've tried to, maybe I've tried to implement some Aussie style elements in the short game. The people have been very kind and they've also been very honest if they needed to understand why I was asking something of them, but they've been pretty cool. Like they've embraced all of the wacky stuff.
I love that. That's so funny. How do you build belief in a squad that isn't traditionally viewed as one of the world's powerhouses, especially with your Australian powerhouse background?
That is a real challenge for Scots. These people are so humble and they're just like, well, we're really nice, but... And I go, no, there's no buts. You can be really, really nice. And I love that everyone wants to have a beer with us after the game. Like, that's cool. But as soon as we step over that white line, we show respect to our opposition by playing as hard as we've got. And I have loved the players that have embraced that and then taken the other players along for the ride, because that's not everybody's default position. Not everybody's always comfortable with like, let's go, and so you do need, a few people, again, who is your spine that can deliver that and take people on the journey. And that's been part of all of our conversation. We talk about beast mode a lot. I think I drive them a bit crazy with it. And of course, that iconic sort of what's your bravery is what we do here. So are you going to have a brave conversation? Are you going to speak directly to your mate, but with empathy and kindness? When you need them to be like stepping up and getting in the face of somebody, can you do that? Which is not necessarily the way that things have been done before. So that's a big part of what we need to do and keep doing and do more of moving forward.
I guess it is just that consistency piece, isn't it, that makes the world of difference when you're trying to build something and implement change. Have there been moments where you've doubted yourself?
And I think all coaches reflect, and some obviously are a bit braver and tougher than others. I would say that I would definitely put myself in the category of having moments of imposter syndrome. And is this really what I should be doing? Did I help them today? Did I enhance what we were doing or were we not? And I do a bit of an exercise with the players around sort of your animal personalities is a way that we talk with each other. And my personality happens to be an otter. So we freak out and we overthink and we talk too much and we make jokes and we do all these weird and wonderful things. But ultimately, it's bringing it back to the facts and figures of what we know and how we can move forward as a group. And we will all have moments where we don't think we can, but we need to get over that and get on with the job. It was interesting what you were saying before about how does Scotland keep improving, etc. One of the really things about Scottish netball is we've played 468 games, right? Only 131 of them have been in Scotland. So if you want to talk about a resilient bunch of people that travel for their netball, often at their own expense, in their own time, and grinding it out, that's the Scots. Fun fact is that we've won 50% of games that we've played at home. But when we have played away, the overall percentage is around about the 40% mark. It drops right off. The question is for us is how do we keep challenging that by maybe playing more home games and having greater success? But that's going to take some work.
Yeah, I think people forget, don't they? All those miles that you put in off the court, like all of that work, all of that travel, the commitment, like you said, the expense, it's just so underestimated. And it is that bigger picture that takes the full package for a team to collaborate and be able to perform their absolute best. Let's talk about the future of netball. This is always an interesting one. If you were given complete control of World Netball for the next 5 years, what would you change?
I think what I have learnt operating out of Scotland is that the value of kindness is going to be a silly word to use, so I'll say collaboration instead. The importance of nations above those nations below and giving them the opportunity to play matches, and even if they're friendlies, that you cannot put a price on that from obviously a high performance point of view, but from a growing the game perspective, we have to get good at having more opportunities for seeing a variety of types of styles and, see it, believe it. All of that is real. There are going to be countries coming from all over the world, and I've said to our squad, anyone who asks, we're going to do everything we can to say yes to play. Not necessarily because it's the perfect time for that in our preparation for a Commonwealth Games, but it's what you do when you want everyone to get good at the game. And I think that having that balance around the globe is really important. I love seeing Cook Islands making a sneaky run at the the 21s. I love what Malaysia's doing. They're really mixing things up from a commercial perspective and really putting together an interesting format of the game with some superstars. What does that mean and how can we grow that? I just love our battles with Tonga. Samoa is doing really cool stuff. And of course, I'm still taking deep breaths because, we had the scoreboard in our favour against Uganda recently in Celtic Cup and we lost by one. It's all of that kind of playing different styles and getting more collaboration. And to be honest, how do we do that? I do think there is a piece of that puzzle where commercially we've got to find a way to be able to put on tournaments that mean that it's not out of the reaches of countries that can't afford to get there. And I think that would be really special for us in the next 5 to 10 years.
All of that talk just shows how exciting World Netball is going to become, isn't it? And how much potential there is and the evolution of the game from all of those different styles and all of those different countries. It's certainly an exciting time to be involved in World Netball. How important do you think content, media and podcasts are in terms of growing the game? Obviously, you've already mentioned the fan engagement and the fans being the kind of backbone and basis of an elite Super League club or a franchise. How important do you think that content piece is?
It is everything. If we do not have a broadcaster who loves us and is just as passionate as the fans are in the seats, and then the CEO of the club needs to be out in the seats with the fans, sitting next to them, experiencing the game, listening to their version, then the podcast can talk about it all week long. And I love that. I mean, I cannot get enough of the podcast, whether that's out of New Zealand they have just got some of the best podcasts down there for their ANZ Premiership. And then we've got so many popping up here for our Super League, which is just brilliant. There's no words for how much we have to grow the game ourselves. Back in the 2010s, we used to talk about the Swifts media team as we are our own newsroom. It was really hard back then to get a column in the Daily Telegraph. Now, we're part of the conversation. But unless we start by being our own newsroom, and whether that's some unreal podcaster or the players doing their own podcast, or, God forbid, we have a CEO's chat where, they're talking, what do we want out of the game and what do the fans want? Look, I'm PR background. I'm biased. This is what I love, but we can make something of it if we are our own newsroom.
I love that. Right, Kath, I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you now. So no time to think. top of your head. Most underrated player you've worked with.
Hope White from the Giants.
Leader you've worked alongside.
Can I do a tie? Marnie Fechner and Carolyn Campbell.
Prefer to coach attack or defence?
Ooh, attackers. They're always gritty. I spend all of my time with the attackers at the Thistles. And of course, I love them equally. So when they listen later, they'll still love me back.
Favourite netball World Cup memory?
I burst into tears when, even thinking about it, when Malawi came down the tunnel and went into the arena singing. I can't even talk about it. Oh, Carla, you got me. That was a life moment. That was really special.
Wow. And the hardest lesson your career so far has taught you?
You can't do everything, and that it is really important to really value the people next to you that will dig in and do the hard stuff. And even though life is short, you do have to pace yourself on game day. It's a tough day.
What's one thing you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Don't worry, your love of netball is going to be a thing, and you're going to be really lucky to do it for a really long time.
Definitely a good life mantra, isn't it? So my final question. After you've spent your career helping shape netball at every level, from grassroots all the way to World Cups, from building clubs to leading countries, when you eventually step away from the sport, what do you hope your legacy will be?
I really hope that putting people first is at the heart of whether you're running a club or running a team, because I do think that when we take all of the fun stuff away from netball, at the end of the day, we're not brain surgeons and we're not ambulance heroes. We are just delivering netball. So sometimes it's really important for us to just take a breath and remember that we need to look after the person first. And then once you look after the person, they'll go and do amazing things for you.
Oh, I love that. That's such a fantastic message. Kath, thank you so much for your time. We are super grateful, and we will be coming to your home country to watch the Commonwealth Games and wish you and your club the best of luck. And honestly, can't thank you enough. It's been such a lovely insight.
Thank you so much. It's actually such a privilege to have the chance to talk about like the administration of the sport as well as the high performance elements. It's cool for those guys just to get a little bit of spotlight on them, because there is a lot of hard work that happens in the dark rooms and under the court in a stadium. There's really hard workers down there too.
Yeah, we see it, we hear you, and we will be shouting from the rooftops to promote that. Thank you once again. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, Carla.
Feel so knowledgeable now. Like, this is just all adding to the pool of countries, like league setups. There's so much going on in netball world, and I'm really privileged and grateful that we get to share this content to our listeners.
How amazing is our back catalogue now?
I know, right?
It's just like, pick a name in the Super League or a coach or whatever. Yeah, we've spoke to them. Yeah, we've got them.
And do you know what's great as
So
well?
good.
Yet again, this was someone that was just requested by one of the listeners, and off we went to find them.
Yeah,
so
we did
thank
it.
you, listener, for suggesting it.
So I know that you want to talk about a specific subject, and it's the bane of my life. And I'm exiting that group chat as soon as I possibly can.
So Chris is referring to the final end of the season for UK fantasy netball. And I want to give them a little shout out first and foremost, because I think they've done a really fantastic job. This is just like normal people who have normal jobs and normal life. They've created a really great platform, which I think is going to make a big difference to people being invested in the sport. And I can hand on heart say, I have been more interested because of my fantasy team. So it absolutely works. But let's just remind our listeners how everything's finished up. I actually screenshotted my own statistics.
Of course you did.
May seem a little sad, but we had our own internal like little fantasy league. So this was Lauren Nichols, obviously our podcast friend of the show, Lowdown with Lauren lead. She's also assistant coach for Nottingham Forest. She's head coach of their next gen. I mean, surely with that level of expertise, I mean, she's played for Loughborough Lightning for years. I could go on all day. She did win, and let's be fair, quite comfortably. She led all the way through and she brought it home. So a little round of applause for our very own Lauren. We also had my brother, James Bateman. He is head coach for Nottingham University's hockey and also an assistant coach for England hockey. He was representing hockey, basically. He's such a know-it-all, just generally. Good friends with Paige Reed, and he used to work alongside Lauren Nichols. So he just thinks he knows everything about netball. Netball. Now, he was sat in second place pretty much, well, I think, in fact, the entire way through. I was literally chomping at his heels because I had the Akuma Avengers. And in the last moment, on the last set of results, I took second place. So that's bragging rights for me in our family dinners for the rest of the year. So James sat in third place, fourth place, a little bit out of nowhere again, because he was lower pretty much all the way through. But we had Ben Clayton representing male players all over the country. And then we had our team juniors, which were representing junior players everywhere. They came second from last. And then pretty much, I mean, a long way from home.
Anyway, let's move on because time's a ticking. Time's a ticking.
Who failed miserably. It was fun. And just in terms of the Battle of the Pods, we had the 6 netball podcasts competing against each other. We came a very respectable second place with 7,019 points. That team was ran by Bex the Boss, our marketing manager. Well done to Netball Unlocked, who beat us on 1,617 points. Our friends over at Here If You Need came fourth, 6,420 points. I'm not going to lie, pretty glad we beat them. Pioneer Jones, we do love you.
Well done, Bex. Don't know how you did that. Well done.
A little shout out to Bex, our marketing manager, who I think, did she come fourth overall?
She did amazing.
Yeah, she really did. I think she came fourth in our league, actually. But it was really fun, and I'm really glad we did it. And like I said, huge shout out to the team at UK Fantasy Netball.
I'm really glad it's over. However, next year, seriously, now I know what I'm doing.
How to
I'm
play.
on it.
We'll see you next year.
There'll be no more bottom place for this player. Okay, before we finish, as always, we have to say a massive thank you to our amazing sponsors, Akuma Sports. Everything that you've heard today will be in our magic show notes, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or you can email us. Thanks for listening.
Have a great week, everybody. We will be at the semi-finals at the weekend. We'll see you there.
Bye for now.